Charlie Belfontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyers Hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And today we got a pretty interesting subject. I mean, the Super Bowl has passed, which means fasten your seatbelts, folks. The real estate market is about to get Looney Tunes again. So we're going to be talking about multiple offers and how to get yourself through it. And quite frankly, I'm thrilled to have the people that we have with us here in the studio and away, just so they're experts on this stuff. And I know that Olin's going to be sharing with us about a couple of times where he actually lost deals and lessons learned from those and how we can move forward. But before I go into too much detail, Olin, if you don't mind, tell us about your company and who you are and how long you've been here, and say hello to somebody special.
Absolutely. All right, Charlie. Thanks for having me again. My name is Olin. I am with At Properties here in Chicago, and I've been with the company for about 13 years. My team is the Olin Sell Chicago team, and there's three of us, very small boutique team inside of At. And give a shout out to my mom, who is in North Carolina and loves seeing her little baby on the radio. So, hey, Mom, love you.
Oh, I love that. And then also in the studio with me, I got Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. Patrick, if you don't mind, same thing, and give somebody a shout out.
All right. I am Patrick Loftus. I am a real estate lawyer. I was licensed to practice law in 2003, which means this is my 20th year as a lawyer.
Wow.
I know. It's my beard grows an inch for every year I'm in law. My shout out is going to be to my beautiful, lovely wife, Anna, and our kitty cat, Naya.
Nice. I love all that stuff. And before I let the last person chit-chat for a bit, I'm going to introduce myself. Again, I'm Charlie Belfontaine. We own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. And our website is www.thehomeinspectors, and that is a .com. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And if you're interested in entering the home inspection business, our school, obviously I think it's the greatest school in the world, but that website is HIUIL.com, HIUIL.com, and that stands for Home Inspection University. Now, the person I want to hear from most, his name is Joey Mathews at the Federal Savings Bank. And Joey, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with mortgages and everything else, but if you can get us up to date before we start talking about what's going to be happening this year with multiple offers with the lack of inventory, please give us a shout out and tell us more about you.
Oh, hi, friends. Joey Mathews, the VA Loan Nerd, NMLS 1330694. You could reach me at thevaloannerd.com on all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd, or on my cell phone, 630-235-2405. Call or text anytime. So what's going on? So so today is Wednesday, February 15th. You're probably listening on Saturday morning.
Nothing to report this morning, right? No important economic indicators.
No.
It's just smooth sailing, easy going. Should probably take you 30 seconds, right?
And just to give all our listeners a heads up, this is a bilingual show, so everybody here speaks English and sarcasm. All right?
Some of us better than others.
Exactly.
My coping mechanism.
To Patrick's point, yeah. So yesterday, being Tuesday, Valentine's Day, the Valentine's Day massacre. And what's funny is, as CPI was going to be coming out, I was like, it would be too perfect if on Valentine's Day we were hot again, and we were. And what I mean by coming in hot, inflation data came in higher than expected. However, it did come in lower than last month, so we're still on a downward trend. It's just not as it's just not cooling as fast as I think the Fed would like.
Yeah.
So.
And what was it? 0.5% or something like that, or?
No. So it came in at 5.4%.
5%.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, 6.4. Jesus, where am I?
Sorry, you're all right.
Yeah. And they were expecting 6.2, so it came in hot. The last month it was 6.5, so I mean it cooled very slightly. But I also think that over the next couple months, because we look over at year-over-year trends, that we're going to start seeing a plateau anyway, because inflation started getting hot a little over a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, whether if eggs are $12 a dozen right now and they're $12 a dozen next year, I mean they're still $12 a dozen, but that means year over year you have 0% inflation, right?
Are
So
they really $12 a dozen? Obviously, I don't shop.
it depends on where you're at. I mean, in Texas, it's crazy. By
Wow.
me, it's still like $4 or $5. It's nothing. But eggs is obviously the big talk in the food world right now. So with inflation coming in hotter than they wanted it to, there's the markets were super volatile yesterday. MBS coupons traded. They started the day. Finished the day a little bit down from where they started. So it wasn't a terrible day, and today is pretty flat again. I think that people really just want to hear what Powell thinks about the data before they really lose their minds. So,
and when's that happening?
Been fun. Oh, when is the next time he usually speaks? Let me see. Yeah. Threw a curveball at me there.
I'm sorry. While you're looking
this week.
Is it?
He usually does speak the same week as inflation data comes out. So.
Okay.
Like
well, when you
tomorrow,
find it or something, and that's not really that important, and you'll share that when you find it. I actually want to get onto the subject at hand because I'm excited. This is my business, and I want to do everything I can to help my clients, and then hopefully the four of us can do a little brainstorming to help each other out. So I'm going to turn it over to Olin a little bit. And Olin, first of all, for those that are just not familiar with it, what does it mean multiple offers, and why are we planning on being in multiple offer situations?
So buyer and seller agreeing on a property to sale, that is an offer. Obviously, multiple offers is when multiple buyers have made an offer at the exact same time, and then the seller then is, I shouldn't say forced, but put in the position of choosing between one of those offers. This is the beginning of 2023, and we've already seen a huge amount of multiple offers in this market. So back in 21 and 22, and I've made this joke on the show before, back in 2021, you're one of 12 offers on a property. At least for the past couple of weeks, you're only one of 3 maybe. But the idea is that the supply and demand is off in Chicago. There is not enough inventory currently for the amount of buyers that are currently in the market. So therefore, if it's an attractive property that gets a number of showings in the first couple weeks that it's on the market, there is the chance that there might be multiple parties that do make an offer at the exact same time, and then you fall into this position of multiple offers. It can be a great position to be in as a seller, or it can be extremely terrible because then you have to deal with the minutia that comes with determining which one is actually best for you.
But isn't that, it's always going to be the same. Most sellers are going to end up being buyers too, right?
That's correct. I mean, it is a domino process. I mean, if the seller's selling their home, they're ideally moving somewhere else, and so it might put them in a position that what's their inventory as a buyer now that they're selling their property? It just becomes a process after a process after a process. I wouldn't say it's ideal unless you have 1 or 2 good offers to work with. I've been in the position where there are 5, 6, 7. The seller just literally has to sit down, pen to paper, and manage what makes the best sense for them. And then you always have the issue of it driving price up, getting out of appraisal. That's when Joey can speak to what he's seen recently. It can be more headache than you want it to be. And as a seller, getting 1 offer is fantastic. Getting 12 is just a nightmare.
Well, let me ask you, I think what is going to be the most obvious thing that comes to people's mind, and that is, all right, I got 12 offers. I just picked the one that is the highest price.
That seems easy.
Tell me why that is perhaps it's not as cut and dry as that.
A lot of people ask that same question. Price is not the only determining factor. Yes, it's the most beautiful and fluffy thing is the high price and look what we sold for. Whenever an offer is written, it is written with down payment, earnest money, closing time, contingencies, and price. So all of those things together. If it's the highest price, it might not be the most attractive for the seller. If it's the highest price, it might be the easiest to accept, but there might be more things that go into it. It also might make you consider where you priced at. Was I too low? Am I going to have an appraisal issue? Let me give you a real world example. I have a listing that just went on the market last week, and we received 4 offers in the first day. I priced it where I thought was very fair with market value. 4 offers in the exact same day, all over list price. So what I did and what my seller did was we asked, is this your best and final, or would you like to edit it? And we give everybody the exact same opportunity to bring their offer up. best and final or highest and best or whatever you want to call it.
Is that normal? I mean, why wouldn't they do it like an eBay thing and let everybody keep bidding against them to see who pays the most?
Because then I would want to quit.
Oh, okay.
It gets to a point where literally you start building on top of each other, and that's exactly what happened here, Charlie. So all jokes aside, we gave all 4 parties the option, is this your final or would you like to increase it? Now, the seller does have the option to literally just pick whichever one they want. They could have gone with just the highest one. In this instance, they were all so similar, and the biggest difference was probably the closing date, which made sense for my seller. We gave them all the opportunity. 3 of them only increased their number by this much. The last one increased their offer $30,000 above our list price, which for this price point was a lot higher than it needed to be. And we ended up still choosing that one, but here's the ironic thing. We actually called that seller back, or that buyer back, and said, you don't really even need to be that high. Would you agree to this number? And we countered them lower, which was still higher than the other 3, because it would have faced an issue of not appraising at value.
Right.
Yeah, Joey.
And I felt really.
Thank you for doing that.
I felt You're welcome. I felt really bad because I didn't want obviously my seller would love to make the most amount of money on their sale, but this was significantly more than I priced it at, which again was fair market value, and they just wanted to win the deal. So we chose that offer and said, but what about this number? And we came back down to a middle grade, still had the better terms, 20% down, fast closing, no contingencies, blah, blah, blah. So the seller actually chose the one that fit their needs the best.
Joey, why did you say thank you that he did that?
Because you would, I mean, in situations like that, you could run into a appraisal issue, and then you're right back to the original offer that you countered with, right?
100%, yep.
So it's just being smart. It's staying ahead of the game. It's getting in front of a speed bump. I mean, that's amazing thinking, in my opinion. So
why does the appraisal matter, though? I mean, if 2 people agree to buy and sell anything really at a particular price, haven't they agreed that that's what the value is? Why is the appraisal important?
Ooh, I actually know the answer to this.
Well, I do too, but I'm trying to give Joey like a platform to.
That was a softball.
Oh,
Yeah, but I got all excited,
right?
you know, that I knew an answer to a question. It's like trivia night. I'm sorry, Joey. Go ahead.
I could do this show all by
I
myself,
love it.
but it wouldn't really be that good.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun.
I would watch it.
There's that sarcasm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so no, I mean, to Patrick's point, it's
Keep going. We're still on the air.
Yeah, I know. Joey's talking.
Oh, what? What's
Go
going
ahead.
on?
Keep
going. Anywho, so the appraisal has to go over, and the loan is going to be based off of the lower of the sales contract or the appraised value, right? So if an appraisal comes in high, that's awesome. Doesn't matter. We don't tell anybody except for our buyer, and we rock and roll. If the appraisal comes in lower and you're not offering an appraisal gap waiver, then you're right back to the negotiating table. Deciding if you still want to pay over, because if you do decide you want to pay over, you have to cover that dollar for dollar. And if you're only putting 3% down, 5% down, you may not have the ability to cover that. That's why in this market, a lot of times people don't, not in this market, but in last year's market, people did not like seeing the smaller down payments because they got nervous about assets to cover appraisal gaps. So
what do you mean by appraisal gap? What is that?
The gap of, so if your offer is 360, appraisal comes in at 320, and you offered a gap waiver of up to $50,000 under what your offer was, then you have to cover dollar for dollar the difference between that 320 and 360, so that $40,000 difference. If you happened to make that offer with 20% down, you can change nothing about the loan except for the fact that you would now have to deal with mortgage insurance because you have a lower loan-to-value ratio. You don't have the 80% loan-to-value ratio. You're now looking at something closer to an 85% loan-to-value, right? So now there's PMI involved. And sometimes what I've been good with, if you are in that appraisal gap situation, is potentially asking the seller to buy out the PMI for the buyer and everyone's happy. Seller still gets a bunch of money and they only have to sacrifice like $2,000 to buy out PMI. So there's still ways to handle it. We're not in that market yet. And because of people like Olin, hopefully we avoid that market. Just negotiate in good faith, negotiate in good faith.
So Olin, did you have any experience with buyers making offers that explicitly said that, hey, if it doesn't appraise out, we're good up to a point? Like, explain how that works and And when would that be a good strategic choice if you're representing a buyer?
Yeah, so that actually just happened last week as well. I've been on both sides of it this week and have experienced it. I have a client who we've now made 3 offers, and we've been outbid on all 3 of them, unfortunately. And this last one, we included what you're talking about. We actually, here's our offer, here's all of our contingencies and terms, but we will also beat the next offer up to X percentage. It's called an escalation. If they got, let's use the same numbers that Joey was just saying. Let's say the property was priced at $350, and we said, but we'll pay $1,000 over that up to $375. We've given ourselves that buffer of not knowing what the other offers are. And then if the appraisal comes in lower, and that's exactly what I put in the offer, was we would cover up to $10,000 of that appraisal waiver. Now, in this instance, we still didn't get chosen for the offer because it was a cash offer that won. So any day, cash is going to be 3%, 5%, 20% down. I found out from the listing agent they actually accepted a lower amount in cash than what our higher amount was from a mortgage.
Why would somebody want to do that?
Less risk, less worry. And Joey, I don't know how many times you see that, but it's the idea of, if these people can go up to $375, that's great, but they still have to get the mortgage. They still have to go through underwriting. There's still the chance that they could lose their job or anything could change in their financing.
But that's
so let's
pretty
just
slim, isn't it?
It is very slim, but that seller said, but I'd be much happier to take just $365 cash, 30-day closing, no contingency. So it's less of a risk for them.
I would take the higher price personally, but what Olin
I'm
is
thinking like
describing
you are.
is what Olin is describing is, I think, more the conventional wisdom.
Correct.
I think that what we have, the advantage or whatever, is that we see this process. We're intimately aware of it. The amount of times, the frequency of someone just simply not qualifying for a low is such a small percentage. I would just take the money.
And I agree. And Joey, how do you combat that for your clients? And I know you shared with me about reaching out to listing agents and that, but how do you make your mortgaged client more attractive than the cash offer client?
So, I mean, there's a few ways to do it. And I mean, for myself, it's because of my pre-approval process. Like, I have everything. I know that when we come out of our initial underwrite, we're only going to be waiting on appraisal and title. And I mean, it's like, seriously, mortgage world is so easy. It's so freaking easy. So, but
anything
it's true.
is easy when you know how to do it. All right, and that's what I tell people all the time. When we first learned how to say the ABCs, it was hard. But now they should be one of the easiest things that we know how to do. So same thing here. When you know how to do it, it's easy.
Yeah, and if there's a gap waiver involved in my contract, and I mean, at the end of the day, communication is the most important thing, right? As long as me and the buyer's agent and the buyer are all on the same page, we present a united front. You know, it makes life a lot easier, and it gives a level of comfort to the seller, the listing agent. There's also, and I haven't really done this too much because I haven't seen it as necessary, is you could pre-underwrite a file. That way it's already underwritten and you know for sure you're only waiting on title appraisal, and then what, like a 2-week close, 3-week close. And honestly, I'm doing 3-week closes either way, whether I do a pre-underwrite or I don't, because again, it's easy. If you can pre-approve someone the right freaking way, your life will be a lot easier.
Almost
once
cost
you have
himself $500 there.
Right.
Joey, who does the appraisal, and is there any way to kind of make that process a little bit smoother? Reading between the lines of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there used to be, right? So the appraisal gets ordered by the lender, and it goes out to a queue for a AMC, an appraisal management company, to pick up. I am so sorry.
You got a little one with you. I love
sick.
it.
My wife has strep, so I'm just, living my...
No, that's how I feel about appraisals, too. I cry a lot, so it's fine.
If somebody else asked me that question, that's exactly what
Just
my
start
reaction
bawling.
would be.
Yeah. But anywho, please.
Well, Olin, jump in on this, Olin. How do you...
No, I was just
doing
about...
what Joey has, how do you make your client more attractive?
As the buyer or the seller?
As the buyer.
So, making an offer, again, you have to keep in mind that there are all of the terms outside of just the price. If you're only able to put 5% down, And I've been told by sellers before, we went with the other offer because they were putting more down. People like Joey and lenders that are on top of their game will call the listing agent after the offer has been made and said, look, I'm representing this client. They are approved. It is only 5%, but it's solid. I've already started the underwriting process, and we're starting from the beginning trying to make that client feel so much more attractive to the seller. Unless they just have that fear and they decide to go with an offer that's 20% down because it's just more upfront, or a cash offer, which is hard to beat, that's what we can do is tell our buyer, look, we only have this availability with the 5%. Let's go in strong in every other category. Maybe we offer as is. Maybe we waive do the appraisal waiver like we were speaking about earlier. Maybe we say the seller can choose the closing date. Maybe we'll do a lease back. So you think of other creative ways to make that offer the most attractive possible. And it doesn't work all the time. Again, that seller might be getting 3 offers, 4 offers. With the escalations that I was talking about earlier, those things build up on each other, and they drive some people crazy, because if I said with my client, we'll beat the next offer by $1,000, and then another agent says the exact same thing, then they're literally stacking on each other.
And that's what I was going back with the eBay thing. Why don't they do that?
That's why, and some listing agents will strictly forbid it and say no escalations, just highest and best, period.
Why would they do that for their seller?
Because of that stacking idea. It's the idea of using the same example. The property's listed at $350, but I say we'll go up to $370 and beat it by $1,000. The next person said the exact same thing. So now it's $371, $372, $373, and it continues driving it unless there's a cap, unless either buyer says, but I will not go above this number. Let's say it gets up to $400, and so we win the bid at $401, and the property's priced at $350. There's guaranteed going to be an appraisal issue here, unless that agent just drastically underpriced it. And I think that is setting up your seller for failure. If you've listed it very low and accept $50,000 above list price, I think it's setting your seller up for failure.
And that might be one good reason to take a cash offer instead. If you really do think there's going to be an appraisal issue, a cash buyer isn't going to be stuck with an appraisal. They're probably not even going to get an appraisal.
No.
So that number is the number. So I could see that being a situation where someone would say, I'll take the cash offer instead of the higher offer with a loan. And really the game you're playing there, if there's a loan involved, is you're trying to figure out how close to the sun can I fly before my wings melt? Because the sun, meaning that the highest appraised price that you can hope for, when you get higher than that, it's few and far between that a buyer will elect to proceed. Because one of the things that a lawyer like me is going to do is I'm going to modify the contract to include an appraisal contingency, which means that my client can say buy if the appraisal comes in low.
Yep.
The way that will generally work out is the appraisal comes in low. No one likes that. Not even the buyer likes it, because even if they're able to negotiate, so the steps really are low appraisal, and then basically I kick out a letter to the seller's lawyer saying the appraisal came in low, we'd like you to reduce the price. If the seller reduces the price, we're good to go, and it only costs the buyer a couple heart palpitations. Otherwise, if the seller either says, no, I think your appraiser got it wrong, which I've got stories, or you find a happy medium. Perhaps the seller says, look, I'll meet you in the middle, and the buyer is able to come up with the cash necessary to do it, then you can proceed that way. But it's really not where anyone in the transaction wants to be. And even when I'm representing a buyer and I think this is going to be an opportunity to get my buyer a lower price, I don't like being there either. I'd rather the appraisal come in just about every situation.
And you're listening to Patrick Loftus explain that. Patrick, if people want to know more or talk to you about this, how do they get hold of you?
I think I'm pointing at my phone number.
You are.
773-632-8330. Call or text.
Sounds good. And we do broadcast this live on Wednesday when we record it in the studio. And you can follow us on the HomeBuyers Hour Facebook group. And we're going to be putting it on different platforms as well. Joey, how do people get a hold of you if they have questions and want to make themselves more attractive to sellers?
Yeah, so you could call or text me anytime, 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com, all over the social medias as the VA Loan Nerd. And yeah, there you go.
Sounds good. Olin, same thing to you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mine's right down here as well.
Good job.
It's 312-771-1328. Call or text. I do live by that number. My email is Olin, Olin, at properties.com, and then all over social media and my website at Olin Sells Chicago.
You know, it's funny you mentioned about living by that number. We had a big, long discussion with a whole bunch of home inspectors in the group, and they were talking about, you know, why is it so hard for me to get business? And the bottom line is, and I hear from real estate agents too, they don't answer their phone. And I can't stress how important that is. So, and with that being said, if you call in the middle of the night, I will not answer my phone.
No, but I'll return the call
Right.
quickly, but I'm not going to answer it at 2 a.m.
The very next morning.
Exactly.
So, my name is Charlie Belfontaine, and our company is Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is The Home Inspectors. That's plural. It's an ORS, and it's a .com. And our phone number is 312-544-9180. And this is for the three of you, you know, this question. It's you mentioned about what do you do when the appraisal comes in low? And Patrick, if you don't mind, since you're the one who said it, I'd like to hear from you first. What happens when the appraisal comes low? How do you help somebody as the attorney?
Well, the first thing that happens is everyone panics.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happens is I send that letter that I referenced. Now, after that, I explained it. I made it sound simple. It's of course not simple.
Okay.
The next thing that happens is the seller and their agent come back and they say, those are all the wrong comps that the appraiser used. Here are some way better comps, and let's go back to the appraiser and ask them to adjust their appraisal. And I sort of go, you can do that, but the number of times that has been successful, at least in my experience, is so low, I don't bother.
Okay.
It just the only thing you can really do, again, in my experience, to get an appraiser to reconsider is to point out something that they got wrong factually about the property. Are they missing a bathroom? Did they? Are they? Is it a 3-bedroom and a den rather than a 3-bedroom? If they got something factually wrong, square footage, whatever it is, you might be able to get a foot in the door to get them to perhaps reconsider, because that may adjust how they would have done their work otherwise. But if you're simply saying you used the wrong comps, you're not getting anywhere.
You
with
hit
them.
the nail on the head with that. That is the biggest issue I've seen, is they are literally looking at the paper that says 3-bedroom, 2-bath, not taking into consideration the den, the dining room, all of the family room split from the living room. Square footage is a huge difference.
But doesn't that
That's
mean they're
exactly-
using wrong comps if they're not using the right floor plans in there?
Yeah.
And then, Joey, I want to turn this over onto you a little bit, because I know you've said it in the past, at least for VA. Maybe I don't understand if it's for conventional and the others, but you said it in the past that when the appraisal comes in wrong, you have a process to go ahead and try and get it corrected?
Yes, this makes me so happy. All right, so
You're awesome, man.
so the VA loan nerd, right?
You really are.
You are the nerd, and I love you for it.
There we go.
So this is why you should be giving heavy consideration to VA loans when you see them, right? So if a appraisal is possibly going to come in low, the appraiser will initiate something called Tidewater. And Tidewater gives us 72 hours to send 3 comps that support value to the appraiser to get the appraisal at value.
That's
If
only
the appraisal-
that's only veteran loans.
VA loans only, right?
Okay.
It's the only one that'll tell you they're having a trouble with a trouble with value before they actually issue the appraisal. The other types that you get the appraisal and you're like, cool, this is short, but here we go, appraisal review. So if the appraisal still comes in low with a VA loan, you have the ability to do what's called a reconsideration of value, and you do it directly through the VA. So you're taking the appraiser entirely out of the situation. And why does this matter? It matters because that is their work, right? So when you're appealing an appraisal, people, unfortunately, they don't look at things logically. They look at things emotionally. And if someone is critiquing your work, if you will, by asking for an appeal for value,
You get
a lot of times
defensive.
they will get defensive.
Yeah.
If you're going straight to the VA with data, and the data matters, and you present it in a solid manner, the same way you would with VA with conventional or FHA, The VA reviews it themselves. The appraiser's completely out of the situation, and they will manually update the value of the appraisal if it makes sense. I had one come in 64K light.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It
What
is.
percentage of that was of the house, though?
It was a $420,000 loan,
That's
right? So that's
big.
What is that, 20?
Almost.
15, 20?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a large amount.
Yeah, that's a head
Yeah.
scratcher when you see that, because you go, wait a second.
Was it priced too low to start with? Is
Well,
it...
everyone involved in that situation agreed that this is the value of the home. And when the appraiser comes in and goes, "No, you missed it by 64K," you're going, "I don't think
How's
I
that
did."
possible? Yeah.
Ugh. Sorry, Joey, go
No,
continue, please.
I love it. I love it. So the appraiser did not update after Tidewater. They just stuck with their super low appraisal. We went to the ROV, the reconsideration of value process. We submitted a nice ROV, and within 2 days, the VA sent over the notice of value at contract price at $420,000. Right? That's 2 times that you have the ability to support your value through Tidewater, sending in comps directly to the appraisal before they actually give value, and then again going straight to the VA rather than going back to the appraiser to get the value. And this is also where it's really important that the real estate agents have good comps.
Yep.
Because if you don't have good comps, you know you don't have good comps.
But
And
doesn't the real estate agent get the comps kind of to help the client put the right price in for the bid? I mean, don't you do that?
On the buyer side, yes, but on the
Yeah.
I think what Joey is alluding to is on the seller side. I'm present on the day of the appraisal. I meet the appraiser and bring my own comps to show them why we priced to where we are. And in the instance of having 4 offers, I also say, and look, we received 4 offers above list price. Here is the demand for this property. Here are my comps, and then let the appraiser do with it, with all of their research behind the scenes.
And let me just say, if you're interviewing a listing agent, this is absolutely something you should be asking them about. What is your process when it comes to the buyer's appraisal? If the buyer, and most buyers will be getting a loan, how are you going to handle the appraisal? Are you going to be present? What materials are you going to be providing the appraiser? If I don't get the right answer from that prospective listing agent, they're out.
Yep.
Now, and Joey, we have a listener. Her name is Bridget, and she just popped up on the screen. She said that there's a 72-hour warning, or I'm sorry,
Correct.
it's a 72-hour time frame in there.
correct. I thought I said that in there, but yes, that is correct.
No, that's important to know. And then, going back to you, Olin, and I guess why, I know you have to be a veteran and there's limitations in order to get a veteran's loan, but I honestly hear a lot of gossip that people despise these loans. They are too much of a pain in the butt to work with. Is that what you're hearing too when you deal with veterans, or do you want to push the veteran loans?
I actually don't work with a ton of veterans. I've only done, I think, 1 or 2 in my entire career. I just don't see them as often. I don't know if that's just a result of me not being a local to Chicago and being in that market. I don't know if Joey can speak more to it, obviously being a primary product that he uses, but 99% of the buyers that I come across are not using VA.
I think it's probably a function of the locality. I don't know that there's as much of a concentration of people who have served living in the Chicago area, where, well, I shouldn't say Chicago area. If you went up closer, like Great Lakes Naval Base, I think you would find a lot more buyers using VA loans, and really any kind of concentration somewhere around where you would find a lot of people serving or who have served. You probably find a lot more VA loans. I mean, honestly, the more Joey talks about VA loans, the better I feel about them. What I'd never liked is that the stack of documents is like 3 inches when I get to the closing table, and I start to use profanity by about, if you get to page 150, I'm probably gonna say a swear word.
That's funny.
Because I start to get frustrated. But I'm dragging us a little far off the topic. So, but yeah, I think they're great programs. When I see a client either on the buy or the sell side and there's a VA loan involved, I've got a smile on my face now.
And I want to go back to something that Patrick said earlier about interviewing your agent and asking those questions. There is a document that the Chicago Association of Realtors provides to us as a benefit to buyers and sellers, and it's literally entitled Buyers and Sellers Guide to Multiple Offers. I mean, it could not be more easily spelled out. It is a document that is maybe 4 or 5 pages long, and it answers all of these questions. And I actually give that to my buyers and sellers when I give them my first initial consultation and explain it from the beginning. And back in 2015, 16, maybe we didn't have a lot of those, but in the past couple of years, I want them to know about it and know that that is a possibility before we even start. It's more about bringing it up and making sure that they're aware of it.
So let me ask you, sorry.
No, real quick. I want to ask Devin to do a little bit of work over here in the studio. Devin, if you don't mind, can you try to find what he's talking about? What was that called again, Olin?
The Buyers and Sellers Guide to Multiple Offers.
And that's through the Chicago Association of Realtors. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, so something I encounter on my end of things, I mean, luckily for me, in a multiple offer situation, I'm usually not seeing that contract until all of the dust is settled and everyone's been bloodied. But what does happen, and where I'm involved, is where there's an agreement's been made, you've entered into a contract, and then someone comes in, swoops in, a couple of days later, and says, "I got $10K more for you," and the seller's head is turned. How do you handle that situation?
What do you mean by that, though? I got $10K more, and they're upset.
So I'm a seller.
Yeah.
And I'm selling my place for $350, and someone has come in and offered to buy it for $350, and we agree. So the contract has been entered into. Everyone signed it. We have a full agreement.
Okay.
3 days later, someone calls my agent and says, I would really like to buy that property for $360, and I got all cash. And as a seller, I'm going, excuse me? And, the meme is well, you know what?
Yeah.
Follow me on Insta, because I'm going to do a reel on this. It's Loftus _law, but it's the meme where the guy's turning his head back and the woman is appalled. But we'll stay tuned for that. But so that's the situation I'm talking about, where you already have a deal in place, but someone else comes in with better terms. How do you handle that?
All right, so I'm your agent. I get that second offer. I'm required to present it to you. I let you know that it came in, that we're already under contract with this first buyer. I immediately call the attorney and let them know that we're going to be engaging them with this because...
Why?
And I go, oh, God, no.
Because that becomes a little bit more of an ethical issue. You've already said you're going to work with this person you're under contract with, and if you pull the rug out from underneath them just for 10 more grand, there's got to be a reason for it. And you want to make sure that your attorney is involved, because if your seller is money hungry and that makes a big deal for them or makes sense to them, as opposed to if that buyer might have already had their inspection and they came back with $5,000-$6,000 worth of inspection items, then you could just say no. And then you could have a little bit of a, I hate to say, way out. But I'm required to present that offer to you. It's also interesting you bring that up, because that means that you are already under contract and that on the MLS it shows attorney and inspection period, yet that person still called to make an appointment to see that property with cash. It's like, where were you a week ago?
Why do I feel that's unethical? But why do I feel that's unethical? Somebody has an agreement, the deal's been made, and you come through there. Why do I feel that that's unethical, yet it happens?
It's because you're normal. Look, a contract is a legally enforceable promise, right? That is the definition of a contract. So when I'm a buyer, and certainly in the market that we've been experiencing the past couple of years, I finally got something under contract. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I mean, it has been a war. And now your lawyer is getting this terse 3-sentence letter that says, I don't approve of the contract and is therefore terminated. And you're going, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And it's a very sticky situation. There's a pervading idea. The conventional wisdom seems to be that the 5 business day attorney review and inspection period is this magic period where I have a magic wand that I can just wave and make a contract go away. In practice, it does often operate that way.
Okay.
Now, in the reality of it is that it's not without risk, because if you are simply ditching that contract because you found a higher price, you've not exercised the attorney review contingency properly, and you could get yourself in trouble. And what I mean by in trouble is you can get yourself sued.
And who are we talking about? Are we talking about the seller, or are we talking about the attorney?
The seller.
Okay.
The seller. Listen, as a lawyer,
But what's somebody going to sue you for? Is it really worth getting sued for, I don't know, what's the magic number? I guess is when it happens, other than principal.
And that's why the conventional wisdom is the way it is.
Okay.
And then you have someone like me who's read the case law, and I go, let's be very deliberate and thoughtful about this. Okay, so we got better terms as far as the price goes, but let's, as Olin was alluding to earlier, let's look at the other stuff. Is the tax the tax proration? Is there something different there that we can hang our hat on? Are the financing terms different? Now we're starting to talk about provisions in the contract that I do have a legitimate reason to disapprove of. And you always want to make sure that you have in your file something that is a note to yourself that this was our this was our theory on it, because years later, when you finally get through the discovery phase of that lawsuit that happens once in a blue moon, you're not going to remember what happened. You're going to have, either say, I don't remember, I don't know, or you're going to just assume that you've thought one way or another. And boy, make sure you have those notes in your file.
Well, as an attorney, how many times has that happened to you where you're on the sell side and your seller did say, I want to go with this other offer? Do you see that a lot?
I mean, it just happened to me. We closed one last week where exactly that happened, and I had to explain to the agent on the second, the villain buyer, if you will. They were hot to trot because they thought, well, why doesn't he just write this letter? And what I said to my client, well, first I said, has the first buyer, the angel buyer, have they had their inspection? Yes, they have. Okay, so every dollar that buyer has sunk into it, if they have paid for an inspection, and as Charlie, as you have advised me, inspections are way more expensive than they used to be when I first went.
They're still too cheap. And this message is to all my home inspector friends: raise your prices.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
No.
And to my lawyers, the dozens of you that are listening to this, I doubt it. Stop undercutting each other, man. We're not doing each other any favors by doing that. But so yeah, it happens. I don't like it. I mean, Charlie, you said, is it ethical?
Doesn't seem ethical.
It is ethical in the sense that these contracts have contingencies, and if you don't meet all of the contingencies, then the contract does not proceed to closing. So.
Yeah. And I could understand that. I could absorb that.
Yeah. So I think you're conflating, and this is not meant as a criticism. I think you're conflating ethical with fair. Is it fair to that first buyer? No. 100% no.
Life isn't fair, though, is it?
But, well, life is not. God, you sound like my dad.
Sorry.
He's going to love that. So is it fair? It's not fair. But the thing is, I don't represent that buyer, okay? I represent the seller, and I'm going to do what's in the seller's best interest based on what they tell me they want. If it were unethical, I wouldn't engage in such a practice. I'd say it's unethical, we can't do it. If you want to go down that road, you're going to have to find a lawyer who is willing to be unethical, and that's not me. But it is ethical, it's not fair, and again, if they've paid for the inspection, if they've paid for the loan application, you're going to find on the other side someone who's awfully upset. And here's the initial thing that you're thinking is, well, if I'm still coming out ahead by giving the buyer, or offering to give the buyer money to compensate them, that is you're treading in dangerous waters there, because you're kind of admitting that what you did was, well, a word that I'm not supposed to use. It's that you're treating them unfairly, and perhaps in a way that is not permissible under the terms of the contract. And so, unfortunately, not only do you have to treat them unfairly, but you can't even try to make up for it. Now, in this instance where we closed that one last week, after we had the cancellation agreement signed and had returned the earnest money, my client did reach out and compensate them for the cost of that inspection.
That's fair.
Fair, and yeah, now that once we had that documentation in place, and thereby could accept the higher offer, because you don't want to have two contracts on one property, then that's a bad idea. At that point, I said, you know, if you feel that way, if you want to reach out to them and offer that, I think you're in the clear. And so, yeah, it was fair-ish.
But there's
not
nothing that
fair.
says they have to compensate him for that in the agreement, right?
Nope.
That's just be a nice person. And Patrick, if somebody has more questions about this, and I'm learning a lot, thank you. How do they get hold of you?
Why don't you go to my website, loftus.law, or you can follow me on Instagram, loftus_law.
Sounds good. And Olin, same question?
Olin at properties.com, and then my website is olinsellchicago.com, and also on all social profiles at olinsellchicago.
I love it. And Joey, how do people get hold of you? And go into a little more detail, about websites and pre-approval stuff, if you don't mind. To me, I think it's kind of like a big important deal right now to not just get the check marks, but a little more.
Yeah. So you can call or text me anytime, 630-235-2405, and find me at the VALoanNerd.com. If you go to the VA Loan Nerd, you will be able to click Apply Now. There'll also be a big stupid picture of my face on there. Also,
I'm gonna stupid picture here too. So
yeah. Also, if you're bored on March 1st, I'll be at the Naperville VFW giving a loan seminar on VA loans. If you're interested in learning more about it, dispelling a lot of myths and all that jazz.
Which is awesome. And just to give everyone a heads up on that, I plan on being there as well, and I think we're going to try and Zoom that. So we're going to give other ways for people to go ahead and partake in it to get the word out. I'm just thrilled with your vast knowledge when it comes to this stuff. So, again, what's your phone number? How do they get hold of you?
630-235-2405.
And I think you posted what Olin was talking about earlier, the guide for the stuff's good. So we'll be able to have that up on there as well. And then we're going to keep it up on the websites as also so anybody can get hold of that. My name is Charlie Belfontaine, and I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is www.thehomeinspectors.com. And our phone number is 312-544-9180. And I want to direct this conversation towards me a little bit, and I want to hear from you three. Should I be worried that a lot of people are not going to be doing home inspections, in this market because that's going to be something that they're going to be waiving?
No, when I said, let me address that really quick. When
Please.
I say waive inspection, I don't mean don't do it. I mean, I'll offer as is and say we will still have an inspection, but we will not come back and nickel and dime you. I almost require that my buyers all have inspections.
Yeah, but
so you will still be getting phone calls from me.
Doesn't the contract still stop nickel and diming anyway? I mean, Patrick, maybe you can help me. Is it the 7-0 or the car or both that limits what you can negotiate for?
Boy, the committee that comes up with the multi-board, they have tried every which way to write that inspection contingency in such a way that we avoid the so-called nickel and diming. And the fact is, there is no contractual provision you could do to change people and who they are.
Correct.
Okay. So, and you don't get to choose who's on the other side for the most part. And if somebody wants to come in, a lot of people think to themselves, look, I'm going to cut the absolute best deal I can. And if the other side thinks that's nickel and diming, well, that's their impression, that's their opinion on it. And
I guess that is opinionated word, isn't it? Or phrase.
Well, it is. There's some, it's loaded in some ways. But, look, if you're a seller and you don't want to engage in that, you can just say, no, the price is what it is. You agreed to as is. And, the caution is that they may decide to walk away. And then you have to do the calculation in your mind. If they walk away and I have to wait another 3 weeks for another offer to come in, what's that going to cost me? And so more often than not, the as is this is what I say. This is what I say when I'm talking to my clients. I say, look, as is means different things depending on what side of the transaction you are. As a seller, it means, oh, thank goodness, I'm not going to get nickel and dime, so to speak. As a buyer, they initially think to themselves, yeah, I'm on board with that. But then the inspection takes place and they find this, that, some other thing, and they go, you know what, we got to ask for this. I mean, I had one that was as is last year, and the buyer client comes to me and says, yeah, so I would like to ask them for a $19,000 credit. I'm just like, we need to have a conversation. But the funny thing about that,
see, that's not nickel and dimes. That's
No.
That's 19,000.
Yeah, that's gold bricks.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's a big discrepancy there.
And I tried to explain to the client, look, we need to tread carefully, blah blah blah, and he basically said, this is what I want. I was able to whittle him down to 11, but I did not feel good about making that $11,000 demand. But I'll be darned if the seller didn't come back with an offer of $8K, which I thought was
That's
$8K
huge.
more than he deserved. But it's one of those situations where I'm proven that I'm not as smart as I think I am.
Well, it's not that. It's just not our choice. It's their money, their home, their everything. They get their choice. All we are is advisors. The person buying and selling gets to do it. So, Olin, I'm going to turn this back on you then. Let's say that just like what Patrick was describing, somebody comes in here. How do you educate somebody in saying, listen, I get you want this. Are you willing? You tell me. Are you willing?
Well, yeah. If you're the seller that accepts an as-is offer, like he just said, you're taking that risk there that somebody is going to have an inspection and still might have questions. But look, for that exact example, if you said, yes, I'll accept as-is because I like your price, but then a professional inspector said there's $19,000 worth of repairs, that's got to hit you as a seller that, okay, look, my place is not perfect. Let me at least try to compensate for a little bit.
He triggered me with that professional inspector word.
I'm telling you.
How do you know somebody's a professional inspector?
Well, you're right.
Sorry.
It's because they work for the Chicagoland Home Inspector.
They had the little patch on their jacket when they walked in, Charlie.
Yeah.
But that's the idea.
I sell those patches.
Saw one at Goodwill last week.
I
Exactly.
got a whole box in my home.
Well, I mean, people who are listing their property as is versus accept as is are also a different animal. I mean, I think some people might have prior inspections before selling and they know what to expect. But like Patrick mentioned, I mean, the idea of a plumbing or an electric or a roof issue that is going to be larger dollar bills is a different animal as opposed to there being $200 or $300 worth of small things, which the car contract does say don't ask for minuscule things, and that's I think what the difference in as is means.
We're getting close to the end of the hour again. It seems like everybody gets passion. These things go real fast. I want to go around the horn one more time and just get like one final word of wisdom. And Olin, if you don't mind, gear yours towards real estate agents. If you can give somebody one sentence, something important to make them good for their clients.
Ask your agent what their experience is in this and past markets and learn from that.
I like that a lot. And Patrick, same question to you.
Yeah. In addition to that, I would want to know who do you go to when you have a situation that arises that you don't have the necessary experience or that you might want to get a second opinion on, because I want to know that we all have our experiences, but nobody has all of the experiences. Yep. So if they've got other experienced people that they can rely on, I think that would be a major plus one. I have so much more to say, so follow me on Loftus_law on Insta, and I will say all those things.
I want a quick word from Joey as well.
Well, Chicago agents, you can close a VA loan in a unapproved VA project, or a project not approved by the VA.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's something interesting, and we are going to talk about that in the near future, I know. So, and as far as choosing a home inspector, check the reviews. That's going to be our number one key. But I want to say thank you to Devin Tingle. He's our producer that makes us look good. Bernie, I know you're out there, so I hope you're doing well. And this is Charlie. And again, I'm out. Thank you for listening.